Hello Pokemon trainers, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet video here on iStarly TV. We are officially 1 month away from the release of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on the Nintendo Switch. And for the 1000th time, I am really excited for these games. I can't wait. But today what I wanted to do is, since we are a month away from the games, and I imagine we've gotten the most news that we're going to get from the month of October, I wanted to make an updated video on all of the returning Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet that have been officially confirmed so far. So these are all the Pokemon that we've seen in any promotional materials or any trailers from Scarlet and Violet. These are, again, all of the returning Pokemon. So what I've done is I've compiled images of all of these Pokemon per region, and then I'm going to talk about them. I'm also going to talk about like the percentages of the Pokemon that are returning from their respective regions, which I think could be pretty interesting. So yeah, let's go ahead and see if your favorites have made it in the games. Of course, once again, this is just updated with the month of October. We still have 1 month worth of information, and even some, they might not officially reveal some Pokemon that are returning until we play the games, right? So even if you do not see your favorite on the list, or one of your favorites on the list, there's a chance it could still be in the game, so keep that in mind. All right, let's kind of get into it. So starting with Gen 1, we have about 39 returning Pokemon so far. That's 39 out of 150, which makes 26% of the Gen 1 Pokemon. Obviously, Gen 1 is one of the largest generations of Pokemon with 150. It's actually the second largest, interestingly. And so if you look at this by numbers, Gen 1 has the most Pokemon returning so far, and that is 39. That is more than any other generation has returning. And, you know, people always say like, oh, Gen 1 always gets all the love. You know, we always have a lot of Gen 1 Pokemon in these games, and that is true. And I do share that criticism if I'm being honest. But if you look at the list, some of these are pretty interesting. I mean, we have Drowsy in there at least, which is, I never thought I'd be a little bit excited to see Drowsy, but Drowsy was not in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and so Drowsy has not been in like an official Pokemon game for a while now. And so, I mean, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but, you know, not in a main series Pokemon game, I guess I mean. And, you know, there's a lot of other Pokemon here that we typically do see, but they're popular ones, they're fan favorites. All of the Eevees, of course. Dragonite is amazing. I'm never unhappy to see Dragonite and the Dragonite family. Pikachu and Raichu, of course, you know, unsurprisingly, same with Meowth and Persian. So, yeah, I mean, Gen 1, you know, at this point, we've seen it literally for 20-something years. So, you know, it's okay to feel tired of it, to start getting tired of it. But like I said, there are 39 Gen 1 Pokemon so far, which is the largest number of returning Pokemon from a single generation so far. But when you look at the percentages, it's 26% of Gen 1 Pokemon are going to be in Scarlet and Violet, again, so far. And that's kind of on the lower end as far as percentages, but as we get later in generations, there are fewer Pokemon. So anyways, here's Gen 1, let's go to Gen 2. Okay, here is Gen 2 now. Something that makes me happy, because Gen 2 is my favorite generation of Pokemon, is that there's a lot of Gen 2 love in Scarlet and Violet so far. So, Sword and Shield, I would say kind of didn't have too many Gen 2 Pokemon in it. And in general, I kind of feel like Gen 2 usually doesn't get that much love in Pokemon games. So I'm really happy to see all of these Gen 2 Pokemon. There are 34 Gen 2 Pokemon so far, and that is 34% of the Gen 2 roster so far. And I will say that's the highest percentage of returning Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet, again, so far. So, you know, and we've seen in the trailer, Girafarig is getting an evolution, which I'm really excited for. Maybe there's a chance another one of these Pokemon on the list is also getting an evolution. I don't know. Or maybe there's new forms of some of these Pokemon. We also saw, of course, Paldea and Wooper. And you know what, the funny thing is, I actually did not include Wooper here if you look at this page. But, you know, we've seen Paldea and Wooper, and we don't know if there's going to be like a Paldean Quagsire, or if it'll be like a new Pokemon, like for, you know, how Runerigus evolves into, or what is it called? Oh, Yamask in Galar evolves into Runerigus rather than Coffigrigus, so that's a possibility with Wooper. So I guess I should have included Quagsire here, so sorry that I didn't. I guess that's 35 technically. But anyways, Scissor's coming back, I love it. Houndoom is coming back. Houndoom was not in Sword and Shield, and in fact a lot of these Pokemon were not in Sword and Shield. Houndoom, Ampharos, Girafarig, Pineco, Dunsparce. I'm really excited to see all of these return. Also, there's Teddiursa and Ursaring, so let's hope that Ursaluna, the new Pokemon from Pokemon Legends Arceus, comes back. Gen 3 also has a good chunk of Pokemon returning. That is 31 out of 135 so far, which makes for 23% of Gen 3 Pokemon. 31 is a lot. This is a good chunk of Gen 3 Pokemon, as I already said. And again, a lot of these Pokemon were not in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Breloom was not. I think Zangoose was. Altaria was not. I do not believe Camerupt was in Sword and Shield. So it's exciting. Sableye, no, actually Sableye might have been in Sword and Shield. I kind of don't remember. Tropius. So there's a lot of Pokemon that were not in Sword and Shield that are making their return to a main series Pokemon game, and I'm really excited for that. Gen 3 is probably my second favorite generation of all time. And honestly, for a long time it went back and forth between Gen 2 and Gen 3 being my favorites. So yeah, let me know who your favorite Gen 3 Pokemon is, and did they make the cut? Now we have Gen 4, which surprisingly also has a lot of Pokemon returning. It has 34 Pokemon returning so far out of 107, which makes for 32% of Gen 4 Pokemon, which is pretty interesting. You know, there's another generation that we will get to pretty soon, maybe spoiler alert, that actually has a little bit of Pokemon returning, like a tiny bit so far. And you would think that they would do that with Gen 4 since we just had Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Now, to be fair, a lot of these Pokemon were not in Sword and Shield, right? I'm trying to look through the list and think, yeah, I mean, Starly was not, which, you know, should be a big deal for me, right? Toxicroak was not, Murkrow or Honchkrow was not. I would know because I love Murkrow. Luxray was not. You know, there's a lot of Pokemon that did not make the cut in Sword and Shield that were from Gen 4, Lumineon. But at the same time, a lot of us are probably tired of some of these Pokemon, given that we had Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which showcased all of these brand new Pokemon, or not brand new, but all of these Pokemon that were brand new in Gen 4. And then we had Legends Arceus, which also had all of these Pokemon in it as well. So I personally am of the mind that you don't need to focus so heavily on Gen 4. You could kind of take some of these out and add other ones from other generations that need more love, but that's just me. So let me know what you think about Gen 4. Are you tired of it yet? Are you happy that these Pokemon are returning in Scarlet and Violet? Is there a Gen 4 Pokemon that you need to see? Now, notably, Garchomp is not on this list. I would be surprised if Garchomp was not in the games, although Garchomp was not in Sword and Shield until the DLCs. So maybe they'll do something like that. And that's something else that I should bring up is that, of course, with Sword and Shield, we got our initial list of returning Pokemon, and there weren't too many, but then later on they did add 2 DLCs, each of which added a bunch of returning Pokemon as well. So that's possible that can happen in Scarlet and Violet as well. So keep that in mind. Now here is the sad state of Gen 5 in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet so far. You know, obviously there's a good chance that more Gen 5 Pokemon get officially revealed between now and the release of the games, but I would say, as far as that's concerned, I would say these numbers are probably very close to what the final count will be, and I think these percentages are going to be very close to what the final percentages are going to be when Scarlet and Violet comes out. So my point is, or I guess what I'm saying is, even if there are a lot more, or even if there are more Gen 5 Pokemon in the games than we see here, it probably won't be too much more. I think that these percentages, so if it's 11, and I will just say this now, this is 11% of the Gen 5 roster, which is a tiny number, but I think that number will stay pretty consistent. So anyways, a lot of these Pokemon were not in Scarlet and Violet, at least upon official release. Of course, once they did the Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra, we did get Crocodile, we did get Zoroark, we did get, I believe, Petalil and Lilligant, and Beartic, I think. Hydreigon is one that was official, like was originally in Sword and Shield, but it's one of my favorite Pokemon, so I'm always happy to see Hydreigon. I will always love it and always want to play with it. So yeah, I'm happy to see Hydreigon. Now there are like Deerling and Sawsbuck were not in Sword and Shield at all, so it's exciting to see them back. I'm really excited to have those back in the roster. But again, this is a really tiny amount of Pokemon, and yeah, it's a small number, and it's kind of sad. But I will also say I think Gen 5 got a decent amount of love in Sword and Shield. I think there were a good chunk, a good chunk of Pokemon from Gen 5 in Sword and Shield. We had like Vanillite, Vanillux, Clink, and those Pokemon. Yeah, there were a lot of those Pokemon. So maybe they felt like there was a lot of Gen 5 in Sword and Shield, so they felt like they could kind of scale it back for Scarlet and Violet. But again, Gen 5 is the generation with the largest roster of Pokemon, with 156 Pokemon. So yeah, interesting stuff. Let me know what you think about the Gen 5 roster in Scarlet and Violet. Honestly, aside from Hydreigon and Crocodile and Sawsbuck, because I haven't seen it in a while, this roster doesn't excite me that much. I typically do enjoy Gen 5, and I think there's a lot of great Gen 5 Pokemon, but this roster is not really doing it for me. Now we have Gen 6 with 21 returning Pokemon so far out of the roster of 72, and that is 29% of the Gen 6 Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet so far. And again, I want to point out the Pokemon that are returning in Scarlet and Violet that did not make any appearance in Sword and Shield, such as Go-Goat and Florges. I believe Vivian, also did not make an appearance in Sword and Shield. So those three families of Pokemon, oh, also Litleo and Pyroar, of course. Yeah, so a lot of returning Gen 6 Pokemon that did not touch Scarlet and Violet. Now we also have Goodra. I do really like Goodra as well, and I hope that we will get Hisuian Goodra as well, and the Hisuian forms in general. But yeah, I'm excited for this. You know, Go-Go, it's been a while since I played with Go-Go and Pyroar and even Florges, so this is cool. I'm happy to see this. Again, Gen 6's roster is really small. In fact, it's the smallest roster in any generation of Pokemon. So I guess they don't really have too much room to add these anyways. And we did get some Gen 6 Pokemon such as Pangoro, you know, in Sword and Shield. So who knows? Who knows what the future holds for Gen 6. But let me know what you think about this, and let's go to Gen 7. Now here is Gen 7. Once again, this is a tiny chunk of Pokemon. This, so far, Gen 7 has the fewest Pokemon in its roster, and that is, I think I counted wrong actually, because you'll notice there I accidentally put Bounsweet on there twice. So I put 14 out of 88, which is 16% of Gen 7, but there's 13 Pokemon here because Bounsweet is twice, so that'll probably be about 29% of Gen 7 Pokemon. Yeah, and this is just a handful of Gen 7 Pokemon. This is really not much of anything at all. We had Serena in Sword and Shield in the official release, and then Fomantis and Lurantis, as well as Lycanroc and that family, and I think Toxapex were all added in the DLCs. So yeah, those are repeat Pokemon. Those are Pokemon that were already in Sword and Shield. Mudsdale and Oricorio, though, and Komala are all Pokemon that were not in Sword and Shield at all. So it is exciting to see those back. I actually really like Komala, so it'll be fun to play with it. Oh, I'm sorry, Mudsdale absolutely was in Sword and Shield. Sorry about that. Yeah, Mudsdale was in Sword and Shield, so never mind. I think it was, right? Who knows? Anyways, Oricorio, cool Pokemon, interesting Pokemon. It's back. Komala's back. Love to see it. And let me know what you think about Gen 7. Again, this is the smallest number of returning Pokemon so far, and I expect that to be the case. I expect Gen 7 to remain the least represented generation in Scarlet and Violet, which is sad. Finally, we have Gen 8. These are the Pokemon from the most recent generation. Obviously, every single one of these was in Sword and Shield. So, you know, this is the first time, and this is actually kind of sad, right? The most recent main series game that we played was Sword and Shield, and the last time, or, you know, that had all of the Galar Pokemon in it, obviously. And so this is the first time where we're going to be playing like a main series new Pokemon release that is missing some of the Sword and Shield Pokemon. So it'll be really sad to see who makes the cut at the end and who does not. Obviously, so far we only have about 28 Pokemon officially revealed, that is about 29% of the Galar Pokedex, of the Galar, Pokemon. And I see some of my favorites, absolutely. There's the Applin family, which is, Flapple and Appleton are two of my top 3 favorite Pokemon in Gen 8. Actually, my 2 favorite Pokemon in Gen 8, with Dragapult being my 3rd. But anyways, we see some fan favorites like Sinistea and Poltegeist. Applin is a fan favorite. Corviknight's back, which is kind of cool. I think that's a cool one. Ice-Q. Stonejourner is probably one of the most boring Pokemon of all time. Oh, I just realized I actually put Frostmoth twice as well. Oops. Okay, so never mind. I guess that's 27 so far, which will probably be about 28% of these Gen 8 Pokemon. But anyways, yeah, notably missing, in my opinion, Dragapult, Grimmsnarl. Those are 2 really cool Pokemon that are not here. The starters are interesting to see missing. So yeah, I mean, that's Gen 8. These are the Pokemon returning in Scarlet and Violet from Gen 8. Let me know your thoughts on that. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on all of this, because I guess something I haven't mentioned, something else I have yet to mention, is the fact that once again, this is our first brand new Pokemon game that will not have every single Pokemon in it. Now, I know even Sun and Moon, when they first came out, they did not have every single Pokemon in it, but then once they added Pokemon Bank support, you could transfer any Pokemon to them. And that's not going to be the case for Scarlet and Violet, just like it was not the case for Sword and Shield. So it's sad. It's definitely really sad. Now, I was upset when they first announced the whole, no national Pokedex thing in Sword and Shield. I ended up kind of getting over it. Sword and Shield was still a great game to me. I still enjoyed it. I still missed a lot of Pokemon, but it was okay at the end of the day for me. I anticipate that the same thing will be true for Scarlet and Violet. Maybe once we play in this new world, once we experience the brand new Pokemon, maybe that'll allow us to make our decisions about it. But as for the Pokemon that are returning so far, I'm excited that there's so much Gen 2. From all the other generations, there are at least a few Pokemon that I'm really excited to see return. I'm really excited to see stuff again like Go-Goat, for example, or Komala, for example, that were not in Sword and Shield. I'm excited to have those back in the Nintendo Switch. Or actually, some of these Pokemon, like Oricorio and Komala, this will be their first time on the Nintendo Switch at all. So that's pretty fun. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think about all of these returning Pokemon. Like I said, okay, so this is about, I think, 217 Pokemon so far. This is 217 returning Pokemon, and we can expect, I would say, 90 to 100 brand new Pokemon, including new forms as well. So that would put us at almost at about 320. I would say maybe about 315 or so Pokemon in the Pokedex. Usually there's about 400 Pokemon in the official release of the games. I think Sword and Shield, I believe, had exactly 400 or around 400. So what that means is there's probably room for about 80 to 90 more Pokemon, more returning Pokemon to be revealed. So keep that in mind. That's a good chunk, but if you break that down by generation, that ends up being I don't know, maybe 10 to 20 returning Pokemon per generation. So not a lot of room. If you're looking at the bigger generations like Gen 1, Gen 3, Gen 5, 10 to 20 new returning Pokemon is not that much, right? But if you're looking at something like Gen 6, then yeah, 10 to 20 is a lot of the roster. So keep that in mind. We're looking at approximately 10 to 20 Pokemon per generation that could still be in these games. So keep that in mind. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave a like and subscribe for more Pokemon Scarlet and Violet content. Again, 1 month to go. That is very, very fast approaching, and I cannot wait. I'll see you very soon.